So we welcome you all to tonight's annual forum, the theme of which is, as you can see, Christianity and culture, ancient and modern perspectives. With our speakers, we will explore the rich and resonant past of our Eastern Orthodox Church, incorporating centuries of history, literature, philosophy, art and culture to gain an understanding of the continuity between the ancient and modern perspectives that are converged in our church. I am very pleased to introduce our guest speakers this evening. Mr. Chris Baghos will be speaking to us about the Church Fathers and classical culture, followed by Dr. Andrew Mellis, who will explore the topic of from ancient music to Christian hymns, the Song of Theology, and finally Father Athanasios will examine the Christian Parthenon, a divine chamber that touched heaven. We are very excited to hear our speakers tonight, and are very thankful to you for taking the time from your very busy schedules to present to us tonight. It is greatly appreciated. We would also like to thank Father Athanasios for allowing us to hold the forum here at St. Catherine's. I'm sure that tonight many of you will have questions, so we'll take one or two questions after each speaker and then have a general Q&A at the end. So firstly, I would like to invite Mr. Chris Baghos to address us. Chris is a PhD candidate at the University of Sydney, currently examining the records between Byzantine and insular hagiographies dating from the 4th to 10th centuries. In 2017, he obtained a Master of Arts with a specialisation in theological studies from the Sydney College of Divinity, having studied at its member institution, St. Andrew's Greek Orthodox Theological College. In 2016, he received a Master of Arts research, which consisted in a thesis on Christian identity, Hellenism and Romanitas in the record of the trial of St. Maximus the Confessor from Sydney University, where he also acquired a diploma of language studies with a major in modern Greek studies 3 years earlier.
Thank you, Olivia, for that kind introduction. It's not only an honor and a blessing to be accompanied by such great speakers, Dr. Mascot. Tonight, I will be discussing the Church Fathers' appropriation of classical culture, which will hopefully set the context for going into presentation. But before discussing the fathers themselves, it is necessary to discuss the literary and cultural renaissance, the context during which the church was established. This renaissance lasted from the 1st century BC to the 4th century AD, and continued to influence the rhetorical curriculum of the Roman Byzantine Empire until the later ages. In short, it attempted to revive our nation from forms of rhetoric that had been established by the Mascot, especially Demosthenes, Socrates, Thucydides, Herodotus, Xenophon, and Plato. And it entailed a revival of what was an elegant form of Greek, antique Greek, within the formal schools and the modern society. In response to what was the increased use of the spoken vernaculars, commonly referred to as key or koine, which spread throughout the East as a result of Alexander the Great's conquest. Needless to say that it contributed to the social class and the surface of revolutions, who had long since been entrusted with the education of the empire and the delivery of its public announcements and celebratory speeches. So, in short, the educated in the Greco-Roman world had two paths to take. Most of them will become either lawyers or imperial administrators. To this end, they learn how to mount the perfect argument and dismount the perfect argument in a highly refined style. And they learn numerous rhetorical figures and tropes. And indeed, they memorized Plato at the age of 12. Such style. Others, however, will take a more enlightened route and join one of the philosophical schools, and indeed the Roman Empire inherited a number of philosophical schools from ancient Greece, the most prominent of which was Stoicism, but the others began to exist under Platonism and Cynicism. So you would have a cynic and a Stoic, battling on the streetlights, vying for common people's attention, arguing over such matters as the nature of the soul, human faith. Something that all these schools had in common, however, was an emphasis on the virtuous life, what it meant to be a good human being. Even the Epicureans, who are misrepresented as heathenists this day and age, but apart from that. In addition to this, you have the survival of the various pagan cults, and you have the Roman toleration of Judaism and antiquity. And it is in such a context that the church emerged. Now, the church had a number of challenges to deal with, such as the false accusations by pagans and Jews, which led to the persecution of the church by the Roman Empire. We call this an external threat. But also, we might label internal problems, namely those who would take what they wanted from the Christian gospel in order to form their own religion, and the various Gnostic sects. And the church dealt valiantly with these problems. And so, continued to gain ground from the 1st to the 3rd centuries, namely due to the courageous cooperation between Jews and Gentiles, men and women, slaves and free men. Its adherents were laying down their lives for the salvation of the world, imitation of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, in obedience to Him and with overwhelming affection for Him. We might say that they were philosophers in the most authentic sense of the term, lovers of God's wisdom, Christ. And the church bestowed a common form, a common identity on the Roman Empire's various inhabitants, regardless of their social class, their ethnic background, by emphasizing that they were created in God's image, that God Himself became a man and died for us to save them from sin and death. So we have the gradual Christianization of the Roman world, which came to Peter's through martyrdom, and through the providential conversion of St. Constantine the Great in the early 4th century. It's important to emphasize that this Christianization did not entail any rejection of the created philosophical, literary, or rhetorical forms. On the contrary, numerous Christian figures, especially those of Byzantium, but also many church fathers in the Latin West, were responsible for the preservation and transmission of the most positive aspects of Greek philosophy, in addition to classical mythology, rhetoric, and poetry, and we'll explore some examples. We'll begin with St. Justin Martyr, one of my favourite saints. A saint who was instrumental in defining the late antique and medieval Christian attitude towards Greek philosophy. St. Justin was born in Flavia in Naples, Palestine, that is modern-day Naples, in either the late 1st or early 2nd century. And he likely descended from Greco-Roman colonists, thus proceeding through the literary rhetorical curriculum, which we discussed earlier. And indeed he cites Homer, Aristotle, and various philosophers. And indeed, he was a seeker of wisdom prior to his adoption of Christianity, having proceeded through the prevailing philosophical schools, having learned to become a Stoic, a Peripatetic, that is Aristotelian, Pythagorean, and finally a Platonist, and he settled on Platonism. But by God's grace, he had a mystical encounter with a mysterious sage during one of his habitual walks by the sea for the sake of contemplation. It's very likely that this mysterious sage was Christ himself, who proceeded to explain the great lives of the prophets of the Old Testament and to systematically correct St. Justin's understanding of the soul, of its faith, of the afterlife. And indeed, this sage, like on Christ, inspired a burning heart in St. Justin, a zeal to spread the gospel. And St. Justin, after this encounter, immediately set out to preach. But he did not abandon his philosophical upbringing, his philosophical background, and indeed he continued to wear the philosopher's cloak, which was his habit. And he went so far as to establish a Christian philosophical school in the heart of Rome, which consisted of men and women. Now, St. Justin was a hero of the church, and he publicly defended the church to its pagan teachers, addressing these two words to the Roman emperors of the time, Antoninus Pius and Baghos. These are known as the apologies. In not saying sorry for anything, these are apologies in the classical Greek sense, no matter how sorry it is. The systematic defense of St. Justin's faith and of the church's lifestyle. The apologies cover a wide range of topics, but they are perhaps most well known for St. Justin's articulation of what we call the Orthodox doctrine. Now, the term Baghos in modern Greek perhaps known simply as word, but it has a rich philosophical heritage. And for the ancients, it meant nature itself. It meant rational faculty, the human person. Let us recall St. John's Gospel, specifically the verses. In the beginning was the Word, Logos. And the Word, Logos, was with God. And the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. The evangelist, St. John, explicitly identified our Lord Jesus Christ as the rational principle through whom the world was made. St. Justin expounded upon his doctrine, and he explicitly said to the emperor, Christ is the rational principle created the entire universe, and indeed it was he who implanted the gift of reason, who implants the gift of reason within every individual human being. Now you saw this, bear in mind that Antoninus Pius and Marcus Aurelius were philosophers. You praise those who believe according to reason, like Socrates, like Heraclitus, like Baghos. These people, whether they were fully aware of it or not, actually believed in a manner consistent with the life of our Lord Jesus Christ. They were virtuous human beings on account of their relationship with Christ. So anything good that they accomplished actually belongs to us Christians. And indeed, consider these people Christians before Christ, that is, Christians before the incarnation of our Saviour. The modern Greek scholar Mascot wonderfully summarized St. Justin's thought. He said, Justin considers Christianity the eternal, worldwide, complete philosophy that contains all others in whatever good they said, but also establishes them in an unshakable manner. Needless to state that the Church shares its attitude with this approach. Having preserved its memory on June 1st, the day of June Martyr, in the liturgical services, and in Martyr. And so the centuries passed, and Christianity became more prevalent in the Roman Empire. It still had numerous difficulties to contend with, namely heresies. the most prominent of which was Arianism, which taught that our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ was somehow subordinate to God the Father, a creature. Of course, this was his name. And sadly, wherever there are heretical rulers, there's also heretical conduct. And amongst the worst things that the Arians succeeded to the imperial throne did was to murder the family of the young Prince Julian. Julian was traumatized by this encounter, by this event. And when he acceded to the imperial throne, he could no longer distinguish between genuine Christianity, as displayed by our Lord on the cross, that is altruistic compassion, self-sacrifice, self-sacrificial love, and the immoral conduct of the Arians. And so he rejected Christianity, and he reverted to paganism. And he actively stood against the church. And part of his strategy was to forbid Christians from teaching the pagan classics. Now, of course, this limits radically their influence in society, because they can no longer train those who advise and become administrators and lawyers and social change. But he did not anticipate the challenge that was to be posed by the two greatest humanists of the age, who remain the patron saints of Greek education, Saints Baghos the Great and Saint Gregory the Theologian, two Christians from Cappadocia, who were raised in the faith, yet nonetheless maintained an interest in classical culture, eventually being educated in Athens, the hub of classical culture. And these two fathers of the church actively claimed the church's share in the classical heritage. For example, St. Gregory innovatively incorporated words and phrases coined by the poets Callimachus, Apollonius of Rhodes, and Baghos, in verse intended to render Christian doctrine more appealing and lucid, and which rivaled the ancient poets in every way to his time. St. Basil went a step further, openly encouraging Christians to read the pagan classics in his famous Address to Youth, that they might discover and imitate the acts of virtue ascribed to heroes such as Heracles, thus preparing themselves for study of the Scriptures. But St. Basil also emphasized discernment, and appealing to the analogy of the bee, which itself has classical roots and was used by the great intellectual Plutarch. He affirmed that the faithful must reject the immoral behavior promoted by the ancient poets, prose writers, and rhetoricians. And this is what he says. Now then, in the manner of the bees must we use these writings. For the bees do not visit all flowers without discernment, nor in fact do they carry away entire those upon which they land, but rather, having taken so much as is suitable to their needs, they let the rest go. We too, if we are wise, shall take in this literature what is allied to the truth, and shall pass over the rest. Now bear in mind that truth for St. Basil was first and foremost a person, naming the way, the truth, and the life, our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ. And you can detect here a consistency with St. Justin's approach. Soon after St. Basil the Great, St. Gregory the Theologian, we had a great church father, St. John Chrysostom, whose epithet means golden mouth. It is the golden mouth preacher. And indeed, this epithet was first given to the 2nd century rhetor, Demosthenes. The Church of St. John Chrysostom is the Christian equivalent to Demosthenes. Now, St. John Chrysostom's initial aspiration was to become a lawyer. He eventually became a great ascetic and a churchman. And so he undertook the rhetorical education system typical of the time, and studied under the greatest humanist, greatest rhetor rather of the age, Baghos. Baghos studied rhetoric, taught rhetoric throughout the Roman Empire, and eventually returned to his own city of Antioch, which happened to be his own city. Baghos actually maintained friendly relations with the Christians of the time, took many Christians within his school, even though he was a very devout pagan. And in fact, he actually placed his hopes on the restoration of paganism on Julian, and praised Julian as the new Herod. So you can understand why St. John distanced himself from his former teacher. But again, he did not repudiate his formation. And in fact, he emphasized that every priest must be willing to embrace the major aspects of his rhetorical culture for the sake of the church, which he perceived as a philosophical school open to all, and therefore superior to those of the pagans. Now, we actually have St. John's explicit instructions to Christians of the time who are concerned about their children studying rhetoric. And this is what he says. And let no one think me ordained that children are to be ignorant, but in some should promise to be of good courage with reference to the spiritual necessities. I would not choose to prevent even this thing that is born of wealth, that is rhetorical training. For just as it is characteristic of extreme folly and madness, when the foundation stones are being shaken to and fro, to run to those who whitewash and not to those who build houses, and the entire household in building is in danger of falling, so conversely, it is characteristic of the certain lowest life, when the walls of the house stand securely and reliably, to prevent the person who wishes to whitewash. Now, what is this analogy? St. John is explicitly stating that there is no problem for your children to have an active rhetorical formation, provided that they are first immersed in the tradition of the church, that they attend the liturgy, they study the scriptures, that they partake of the sacraments. And St. John, once from time to time, he criticized rhetoric in order to curb the preference for style of a content displayed perhaps by his most educated parishioners, nonetheless told his priests to attempt to live up to the rhetorical standards of the age, knowing that the congregation, even those who are uneducated, expected to hear eloquent speeches. And he said, since we are weak, that is, since our attention can be cut short, the sermon ought to be made elaborate and diverse, containing comparisons and proofs from example, Catas Gavas periods. Now these are all rhetorical tropes and figures, and many other such themes, in order that, out of everything featured in the scriptures, the acquisition of those things profitable to us might become easy. So St. John is establishing an important distinction between form and content. We take the pagan form and we infuse it with profound Christian content. Now, I had an example of the church's appropriation of poetry, but I think time is cutting short, so I'll go to my concluding remarks. Perhaps we can revisit this during the Q&A. So, it's important to remember that the Church Fathers interpreted the philosophical and literary outlook of the ancient Greeks and Romans from a Christ-centered perspective, thus serving as its redeemers. Indeed, they recognized the philosophical and literary rhetorical heritage, ridding it of its vices and maintaining its virtues, thus offering Greco-Roman culture a new life in Christ. Traces of this culture can of course be discerned today in the Greek Orthodox Church, and the Orthodox Church more broadly, not only in the writings of the Fathers, like those cited tonight, but in the themes, the icons, and the liturgical services, which their works directly influenced and helped to justify. Now, I'm not saying we should all go and enroll in classical degrees tomorrow, although wouldn't that be lovely at the time? What I want to emphasize is the Church Fathers' approach to their contemporary culture. We need to remember, like the Fathers, that we have nothing to fear of those aspects of pagan or in this day and age secular culture that are compatible with the gospel. Christ is indeed the source of everything rational, everything good, everything beautiful in this world. And indeed, we need to seek common ground with unbelievers for the sake of mission, to spread the gospel by appropriating the best aspects of our contemporary culture. Again, exercising discernment in the manner advocated by St. Basil the Great and St. John Chrysostom. Thank you very much for your attention.